Hi. Alrighty. Y'all get another live with me. Okay. So, let me get to this. Hi, Cami. Hi, Helen. Tonight we're talking about books, medical coding books, because I've gotten 5 messages in the last couple of days asking about my thoughts on using old books and, should they get the new books? And I want to talk about this for a little bit because there is a method to the things that I do and the things that I suggest and the reasons that I do them. So I'm going to talk about these tonight. I'm going to show you a couple of these books so that way you guys have some idea of what's going on with these books. So, hi, Alexandria. So if you have any questions about the books, now is the time to ask about the books. Because we're all here to discuss. So if we're going to go ahead and get started, I think I have enough people in here. I don't know. They took away the thing that says how many people are here live watching it. So I don't know how many people are in here yet. So if you are studying medical coding and you are in your program and you want to know about the books and things like that, okay, cool. That's enough then. So if you're brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. So guys, if you have questions about coding books, now is the time to ask them. But I will say this is not an ad for OPTIM, but OPTIM is the brand of books that I recommend. You can use the OPTIM books for either one of the association exams. If you're taking an AHIMA exam, the CCS, CCA, CCSP. If you're with AAPC and you're taking the CPC exam, believe it or not, you do have your choice of publisher when it comes to ICD-10-CM and your HCPCS book, which means that you can totally pick the OPTIM version of those ICD-10-CM and the HCPCS book, which is, it's a good deal. Now, every publisher is going to be different. I have noticed, me personally, when I've been working with tons of students, because I am a medical coding tutor and I have my own Patreon channel and all these good things for medical coding, I have noticed that when people are using different brands of books, that sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to work through some of those because they don't have the same things as everybody else. OPTIM is the most comprehensive, okay? I will say that OPTIM books start really going on sale. They're on sale right now for the 2024 editions. They're at a discounted rate. But the OPTIM books really start going on sale in September, August, September. You can get them at a really deep discount. And so they go like 85% off. And you can use the 2024 editions into 2025 if you are sitting for an AHIMA exam. Because AHIMA, if you're taking the CCS, CCA, or CCSP, you can use the 2024 editions all the way till the end of April, because May 1st is when they switch over to the current year version of the test. So you will be using the 2024 editions if you're taking your test for AHIMA in January, in February, in March, or in April. You will be using the 2024 editions, okay? If you are taking your test in May of 2025 and beyond, it's going to be to the end of course, the next year cycle, it's going to be the 2025 editions. So just something to keep in mind. Now, if you're with AAPC, AAPC does say that you can use the 2024 editions into 2025. However, if there is a code update and you don't happen to have that code in your book, That is the only risk that you take, right? Is not knowing if, that code's going to be updated and you're not going to have the correct code in your book. It's not going to be so drastic that you're going to need to have all of these new books. If you have the 2024 editions and you say, Blue, I can't afford the 2025 editions right now, that's okay. I mean, but you're going to take that chance. Majority of the codes are going to be there, but you're still going to take that chance of, hey, this code may be updated, but you can use context clues and, you'll be able to know if you're going to select the correct code or not. So that's just my advice on that one, but you can totally do that if you want to. January 1 is when AAPC turns over to the current year book, okay? So the current year test is going to be January 1 and on. With AHEMA, it is May 1st and until the end of April the next year. That's how long they run their tests on that current year book. Okay, so just something that you ought to know. But don't be so steadfast that, oh, I have to only use this AAPC book because this is what I got. If you have extra funds and you want to get the OPTIM books, because I'm going to talk about those tonight, again, not an ad. But if you want to get those books, then that's totally fine. So that way you can have a more comprehensive book. It's going to have more notes in it. It's going to have more appendixes in it. So with OPTIM, in the OPTIM books, they do have a lot of appendixes in the back that are very helpful. And there's a lot of really good anatomy plates in there as well. So getting very comfortable with your book is very important in this phase of learning, because if you're not comfortable with your book, that's going to make all the difference in the world. Now, I will say this about tabbing. If you have your books tabbed, now there's some people who are going to be upset and say, oh, well, no, that's how I learn. These are not workbooks. These are reference books. And if you treat them as such and you get used to them, you will start to develop speed. Now, these 4 main medical coding certifications, the CCS, CCA, CCSP, or the CPC, these are all timed exams. Now, AHEMA is roughly these 3 exams, the CCS, CCA, CCSP, these are all roughly 2 minutes per question, okay? Now, with AAPC, you get 2 minutes, 40 seconds per question. Not all the questions are going to take you that long to answer, but if you are working on your speed, this is going to be good, because then you're going to know how to pace yourself through these exams. So just something to keep in mind, all right? Okay, so let's talk about the workbooks first, because this seems to be the biggest thing that I've been getting these messages about, okay? This is the #1 book that I recommend when it comes to learning ICD-10 CM, which is your diagnosis coding. It also covers ICD-10 PCS. Now, here's the thing. Not every test covers ICD-10 PCS. If you are taking the CCSP, the Certified Coding Specialist Physician based with the AHEMA, or you are taking the CPC with AAPC, you will not see ICD-10 PCS on your test at all, okay? You can still use this book because it's still very comprehensive for ICD-10 CM. That's your diagnosis coding, okay? You can still use this book. It is a fantastically written book. This book I recommend hands down. Back in 2021, when I was studying for the CCS, this is the book that I used to prepare me, okay? Now, the CCS is the Mastery Medical Coding Certification. That is undisputed in the industry because it says you have mastered inpatient coding and outpatient coding. I used this book to prepare me. Now, yes, I do have tabs on these books because I use these a lot. And the thing is, this is not your coding manuals. This is your workbook, okay? So again, if you are sitting for the CCS, the CCSP, or the CPC, you can still use it. There's a lot of really good exercises in the back. There's lots of exercises in the back. They have the answers. They have the rationale. It is the best book for learning diagnosis coding and inpatient procedure coding. So if you're taking the CCS or the CCA, this is going to help you to learn that ICD-10 PCS part because it will break it down. But again, if you're taking the CPC or the CCSP, you can just skip the ICD-10 PCS questions. And you will know what those ICD-10 PCS codes look like because you're going through the book. Trust me, it's very distinctive. You will be able to know what they look like. But work with this book, okay? Now, if you have the Bucks book, now I will say this about Bucks. There's that step-by-step book from Bucks. I personally can't recommend it because I have seen that book. I actually have a few of their books myself. I love books. It's clear. This is not all of them, but I love books. And what I have found when it comes to the Bucks books is that it's explained in a way that veteran coders can understand, not for new coders to understand, because a lot of confusion can come from that book because it's just the way that it's written and the way that it's worded. I can understand it, but if you're somebody new trying to learn it, again, it's not written in a way that's helpful. This is written in a way that is helpful. So that's the difference between those two. Whichever book you choose to go with, whether it is the Bucks book or whether it is this book, to learn your diagnosis coding, is entirely up to you. I am just making recommendations because I love this field and I want people to be set up for success. There's a lot of things that go on in this industry that are self-serving. I have no self-serving here other than to share this with all of you. I love this field. Okay, yeah, I think it's pretty apparent when I speak about it and I giggle and I laugh because I'm heart happy. It makes my heart happy when I talk about it. Some people don't understand me when I giggle, but it's because it brings me joy. It literally does bring me joy. So that's why I do it. So again, if you want to pick another book to go through, that's totally fine. But this is my channel and I will recommend what I recommend. Okay. And I have my reasons for doing so, but it's to benefit you. Now, again, this is a 2019 book. I don't recommend getting the 2019 book because the price for this skyrocketed unnecessarily. We used to be able to find this book for $39, right? But then I started recommending it. It's literally in the description box of all my videos. And all of a sudden now it's like $200, like $180 something. And I'm like, it's a 2019 book. But if you see some of the newer versions of this book, they're cheaper. So again, wherever you can find the best deal. Now, don't go back to 2019. 2019 was quite a few years back. If you can go 2 years back, maybe 3 years back, these books have the exact same information, but just updated codes sometimes, right? Because sometimes some of the codes will be updated, sometimes they won't. So 85 to 95% of the book is still the same as the current year book. They do have a current year version of this book. But guess what? That is much more expensive. Those codes are going to go out just as quickly as the other ones went out. And you're going to have the same situation over and over again. So if you go 2 years back, maybe 22 or a 23 version of the book, that's okay. You saved yourself some money. It is a fraction of the price. You could still get the practices in it. If you are practicing and you see that your code that you got is not the same as their code, and then you see that their code is not in your book at all, then you know that code got updated. Okay? And there's ways to find out what the code is or what it updated to. It's very easy to find that information out. But again, this is meant to save you money. If you are insisting on getting the current year book, then by all means, please do not follow my advice. Do with whatever you want to do with. But for those that want to save some money, because again, why spend all this money when you can get the exact same thing for cheaper? Okay, so do that. Do whatever you want to. The only thing I care that you do is you practice. That's all I care that you do. Okay. So when you're doing that, your diagnosis portion is covered. Your inpatient procedure portions are covered. Now, CPT. CPT is on all 4 of these exams. Okay. CPT is on all 4 of these exams. CPT is huge. Current procedural terminology has a lot. It covers your evaluation and management codes. It covers your modifiers. It covers of course, your outpatient procedures. So there's all of those procedures housed in that book. The best book for learning that subject, CPT, is a CPC Study Guide. Yes, you heard me right, the CPC Study Guide. Now, I am all the way with a HEMA. But when it comes to books, I do not look at, oh no, that's wrong. That, that I don't like that one. This is from AAPC and I will recommend this hands down, even if you are sitting for an AHEMA exam, the CCS, the CCA, or the CCSP, you can still use this book. Why? because we all use the same CPT code set that is used in here, same ICD-10 CM code set that is used in here. Everybody uses the same code set. The only difference is this is made by AAPC. It is a fantastically written book. Now again, 2019, you don't have to get 2019. But you can get the most current year book for this, and they're going to have all of the explanations. I like AAPC's version because it's very straightforward. It gives you all of the answers, unlike some other publishers who only give you the odd number questions answers. They give you all of the answers, and they break it down for you. Some of these are multiple choice, and some of these are just the scenarios with no multiple choice, so you have to think of the answers yourself, which is fantastic, especially because, you know, with AAPC and, you know, their exam things, it's good for you to learn how to practice on your own without multiple choice, because the real world is not multiple choice. So that's where you have to learn it. This has a lot of really vibrant, beautiful illustrations all throughout. And it's got very simple and straightforward definitions of things. They cover a lot of medical terminology, which is really important when you're learning medical coding, you see. So it's covering a lot in this little book. You may think, oh, it's so small, but it packs a punch. So this is a really good book for learning CPT. You can practice with this. You get through this book, you get through this entire book, and you know you're going to be rocking and rolling. You're going to be, you know, ready for these exams. So, but yeah, so those two, and that's what I recommend for learning the coding portion. Now, when it comes to like the other domains and stuff, like, you know, how to learn about like reimbursement and things, there's a lot that you can Google. Okay. If you need to know about IPPS or OPPS or any of those things, the OIG, HIPAA, those are a simple Google search. Now, I recommend taking advantage of all of the things that are on Google, so that way you can find as many free resources as you can. There's a lot of people that think they need to buy things. Oh, I need to go and buy this on Amazon. I need to go and buy this. There's the public library that is chock full of plenty of workbooks that are like for medical terminology, for pathophysiology, for anatomy and physiology. So you can use those from the public library. You can also take advantage of everything that's available on YouTube. There is a ton of channels about anatomy on YouTube that will help you to learn. So it's not just about being in the books. It's actually about like, okay, here's these other resources. Medical terminology doesn't change. Anatomy and physiology doesn't change because we're not discovering any new body parts. We're not. And so pathophysiology does not change either. So you can look at these things and you can practice with those. You can watch the videos and do those types of things. Repetition is the key to adult education. The key to adult education is repetition. That's what I meant to say. And it's never more true than if you sit there and you listen to those videos, and even if you think that you're mindlessly listening, your brain is still listening to everything that all these stimuli that are around you. It's listening. And so when you go through that, then your brain is able to start absorbing these things. The more you know about medical terminology, the better. If you've already gone through a medical terminology course, an anatomy course, that's good. You want to build on those things. But don't get bogged down by working on that. If you are already done with that course, you can supplement it a little bit here and there, because it's a lot. And you're going to continue to learn it. And even for myself, I've been in this field for 15, 16 years now, and I still have to look things up. So you're always going to be that way. That's something that you're not going to learn overnight. You're not going to learn that, in 1 year. It's going to be a lifelong learning process. So just make sure that you keep that in mind. But you can use older books to study. If you want to use the current books, they're more expensive, and they're going to have the same thing as a book that is a year older or a year older than that. Okay, try to go back 2 years only, If you don't have money to buy these books, it's okay. You can check the public library. Sometimes you'll find that they have these workbooks. They may be a little older, and sometimes you may get lucky and they could be new. You know, you never know, especially in like the bigger cities, the more metropolitan cities. You may find some that are, you know, a couple of years old, or somebody donated their books to the public library, and you may have a whole code set of books to play with. It's up to you, okay? But please don't send me questions about books, because again, I don't recommend those, and I never will, because again, that's not going to give you guys the comprehensive teachings that I think that you all should have, right? But if you want to practice with it, if it worked for somebody else and it's going to work for you, then by all means, you go right ahead. Let's see. For learning, evaluation, and management, this is the book that I recommend. So this is the Evaluation and Management Coding Advisor from OPTIM. All right. So here, if you go to OPTIM Coding, again, not an ad. If you go to optimcoding.com, you will find this very book. The great thing about this book is that it's current. And well, this is a 23 book, but you can still get the 2024 book. It is a fantastic book. It does explain everything quite well. It goes into depth on every single level that there is. It gives you examples and things like that, and it goes through all kinds of different quizzes and things. So there are quizzes throughout this book. If you are learning evaluation and management on your own, this is the book that I recommend, okay? Now, I did have a E&M group for my Patreons, and it was in the beta period. So because I was thinking about, okay, well, you know, people were asking me for a specific class for E&M, and I was trying to put it together so that I can, you know, make it available to the public. It's still not available yet. But this was one of the things, this is one of the books that we used and that we were talking about during the class, was some of these things and going through this together. And this has gone a long way to helping people, because again, this book is written very well. This is a very good book. Now, if you are already saying, Blue, I don't like this, I don't know evaluation and management, you need to put all of those preconceived notions aside and get this book and practice with it. Don't think about, oh no, it's so hard, I don't understand it. Just start reading it and then go through it and work with your CPT book alongside of it, and you will see that there's a huge difference in your understanding once you get through this book, okay? Because like I said, when I was doing my class, we were going through this and going through reading the scenarios together, and then I was giving them scenarios to work through, and then, you know, by the time the class ends, you know, I got one more class with them, but by the time the class ends, I feel like they're a lot better now than they were when they started. So, but it's all up to the individual. But don't get so hopped up on, oh, I need to study for E&M when you're preparing for your exam. Because when you look at the domains of the CCS, the CCA, the CCSP, or the CPC, you're going to see that E&M is actually a very small portion of it. It's not going to be the whole test. So you do have to have a general understanding. You need to understand the table of risk. You need to understand what each kind of level means, and what does it kind of encompass. What the E&M levels are for certain things, like if they're inpatient in a hospital and it's for the professional fee side, what are those? Because they have initial, they have subsequent visits, and they have the discharge codes for those. And then you have your outpatient clinic visits. You also have your emergency department visits and all kinds of things. So those are the key things to understand. Go into evaluation and management with an open mind. Get rid of any preconceived notions that you have, because E&M is actually a lot easier than people make it out to be. And it's really not that hard once you understand and you get that practice, okay? So the best thing that you guys can do, because I did give y'all a challenge, and of course I don't have my CPT book. I did give you guys a challenge at the beginning of the month. So if you are working on that challenge right now, the 3 challenges were, one was reading the coding guidelines once per week for the duration of the summer. Then that means you will have read them, 12 times by the end of the summer. And that to me is very good because you're going to be very proficient on those guidelines. Even though they don't make sense to you, you're going to be very proficient on them. So reading them once per week, you'll be done 12 times, by the end of the summer. Because that's, the end of August is when this whole thing closes, the summer challenge. Okay, it's like a summer reading challenge. The other one was breaking down I think it's 17 chapters that it comes out to, like full chapters for CPT. You're reading all the chapters, all the notes. You don't have to read about the codes, but just reading the notes in CPT and like the tips in CPT. So that way you can familiarize yourself with all of the chapters. A lot of times people neglect to go through the entire book. They want to tab the book and they want to add all of these things to it that doesn't need to be there, and circling and highlighting and writing when it's already written by a doctor. Doctors and scholars write that CPT book because it's from the AMA. So by reading those notes and breaking down those chapters per month, what is it like? What did I say? Let's see, 4 chapters. That's 16 chapters. So plus 1. So that'll be like the 16, because I estimated it because there's some of them you don't have to read because it's very small or whatever. But for those other 17 chapters, there's a lot of things there. So if you read 4 of those chapters per month, and that's 1 chapter per week, that's going to make you go through the entire CPT book in the entire summer. Okay? So I'm just saying that that's one of the things that you can be doing. The other one is for the OPTIM book, right? I know this is the 2023 book. I don't know what the heck I did with my, it's right here, the 2024 one. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so the 2024 book for OPTIM. Let me show you guys why I love this book so much. You'll have to understand that when I'm telling you that I like books for a reason, I like books for a reason. With this OPTIM book, this was the 3rd challenge, right? That you go through all of these chapters at the beginning of each chapter. OPTIM does this. I know of no other publisher that does this. So at the beginning of the chapter, it has the coding guidelines broken down by chapter. Okay, so you have your chapter guide, your coding guidelines in the front of the book. Let's see. You have them at the front of the book. Okay, I know it's a lot of flipping. Work with me, guys. So all these guidelines are here in the front. You can totally read these from the front. You can listen to the guidelines however you want to do it. But when you get into the book itself, into the tabular section, because that's where all these little different colors are at, right? That's your tabular section. This in the front, these are the same guidelines that are in the front of the book. And this is at the beginning of every single chapter. And I think this is the one with 17. This is the one with 17. CPT has 14 chapters for you to go through. Totally doable, guys, over the summer. And we're just 2 weeks in, so you still have time to catch up, okay? Now, here, right, you see these little purple boxes? These are questions. There's questions here. There's the answer right here, and then they have the rationale as well. So in the guidelines, they're giving you examples of the guidelines in action with these little samples here. What I said to do was cover up the answers and look up the codes. So that way you're working through every single chapter. And you see how there's more here and there's more here. Okay. So that means you're getting through the whole thing. It's 17 of these. Okay. There's 17 of these chapters. So you can practice. This is like a workbook inside of your coding manual. But you do this and you will have gone through every single chapter. There will be nothing that you missed out on. The great thing about doing this is that you're going to understand where your weaknesses are. Is your weakness going to be because you, when they talk about fractures, you don't really understand that? And that injury chapter, that's what's going to help you to get that, okay? Because then you're going to know where to narrow down. Like, okay, I know I need to narrow down on this. Or the cardio section, I need to narrow down on that. That's what you can do, and that's where you can learn where your weaknesses are at by going through, covering up these answers, looking up the codes, and practicing, so that way you can see where are you missing these things. There's also sequencing, because these are not just little one-liner questions. These are like questions that have like multiple codes to go with it, which is fantastic because again, it's going to help you with your sequencing. And again, sequencing is a big thing in the guidelines because it's going to tell you like, okay, this goes first, this goes second, code additional, use this, and that kind of thing. So that's where you're going to get your practice in there. That's what I'm saying there. So those are the three coding challenges. Reading the 2024 ICD-10-CM coding guidelines or listening to them 12 times for the summer, okay? Reading the CPT, the coding tips and things like that, all the notes, right? Not the codes, but reading the notes that's in each chapter, reading those, or doing these exercises here in ICD-10-CM. Now, if you want to do all three, even better. But that's just something that you can do to practice. The summer shouldn't be just like, okay, I'm going to forget it all. No, you can do things to proactively help yourself. This also goes for those that they completed their program, they've gotten their certification, they're out there looking for a job. Then they say, well, Blue, I can't find a job and I'm forgetting all these things. You have the power to remember to do all of these exercises so that way you don't lose your skill. You know, it was hard enough to pass a test, right? You don't want to lose that practice because they're still going to test you when you get out there in the real world and you're applying for those jobs. They're going to give you those assessment tests. So that way they can see what your skills are. And if you stop studying, guess what happens? You're going to miss out on the job opportunity because you don't know how to code. No one is going to teach you how to code in the real world. You may have people who will help you, but you will not have people to hold your hand. So you have to learn to be resilient, and you have to learn to be self-sustaining with these books, okay? That's just how I'm trying to help you guys, okay? The other thing is this, again, if you're taking the CCS or the CCA and you need to practice on PCS coding, OPTIM, because you can use the OPTIM book for the AHIMA exams as well, because you have your choice of publisher. Now, with PCS from OPTIM, in the back, they have the whole list. They have a whole list, 388 procedures in ICD-10 PCS to look up. Then they have the answer key immediately after it. So you have all of your answers, and some have rationale as to why, but you have all of the answer key, you have the rationale. But if you work through those 388, you will be very ready for your exam. And that's how you do it, by working through those workbooks that I've suggested, the 2 workbooks, and then working through this, and then working through those exercises in ICD-10-CM as well from OPTIM. So that way you have all of these practices that you can be doing, okay? Take advantage of the things that you do have in this book, okay? 388 of these procedures. When I took my CCS exam in 2021, I've never coded on the inpatient side. I know enough to get around on the inpatient side. I've done professional fee coding, obviously, but professional fee coding is in the outpatient side. Inpatient coding, like when they're staying in the hospital and you are coding for the facility side, and that's all your PCS stuff. This is not for physicians. This is for facility side. So when you're coding these things and you're having to work through all of these, I had no experience in that in the real world. I know enough based on the books, and I know enough to get me around, right? I can answer questions and things like that. But having the experience of doing all of this practice in the PCS book has done wonders for my confidence when it comes to coding for PCS, because you have to know your procedures approaches. You have to understand what those things mean. Extirpation, you got to understand what that means. And so repair doesn't necessarily mean repair. A repair is not a repair is not a repair in ICD-10 PCS. A repair is a repair is a repair in CPT, but not in PCS. So that's something that you got to keep in mind, all right? But those are the things that when you're using your book, and trust me, you get so familiar with them and you get so quick. and it's going to make things a lot easier for you. There's also a website called justcoding.com. I have mentioned justcoding.com on my episode about free resources and stuff. They have a paid subscription and they have a free subscription. I love Just Coding. No, not an ad for Just Coding. But they do have a free subscription. And on that free subscription side, they have free 5-question coding quizzes, okay? They have ICD-10-CM, CPT, and ICD-10 PCS questions, right? And they have, like, it'll tell you, like, if you take the quiz, it's multiple choice, yes. But when you take the quiz, it'll tell you if you got your answers wrong or if you got your answers right. It won't give you the answers, but it'll tell you if if you passed or whatever. And you could take it over and over again because, again, it's all free. Now, before, when I've mentioned this, I've had people say, well, Blue, those were really easy. Did you cover up the answers so that you're not choosing from multiple choice? Well, no. So cover up the answers. And this is a free resource. It is a free resource that is designed to help you. So having gratitude and putting gratitude into the universe is the best thing that you can do instead of being ungrateful. I'm just saying. So let's see. Did I miss anything? Hi, Crystal. Alexandria says, any quick tips for me since I start my first coding job on July 1st? That's a great idea to donate my older coding books to the local library. There you go. Well, if it isn't Jerry. Now, if I can just get JR to show up, that'll be, I'll have both my people here. Hi, Blue. I'll have to watch this later, just doing some drive-by. Aw. Hi, honey. Hi, Beth. And that definitely makes the OPTIM book much better. It is. And like I said, I just love OPTIM. And when it comes to OPTIM and, all the things that they have available on their website, I have to control myself and not go to their website too much because I will buy their books because they're just it's so helpful. All the things that they have on the website is very helpful, and it's designed with coders in mind. And that's what I love. And coders of all different experience levels, brand new coders, intermediate coders, advanced coders. And that's what it's designed for. And that's what I love. That's what I love about OPTIM. Every time whenever I go to conference, whenever I go to anything and I see them and I'm like, it's OPTIM. But yeah, that's what I do because, I love books, But anyway, so work through this. If you're studying for the CCS or the CCA, this is a fantastic resource in the back of this book. The AMA also does this as well. So the AMA ICD-10 PCS book, I believe, does have it. One of my other clients had an AMA version of the ICD-10 PCS book, and they said that those exercises were back there, and she was thrilled because she had no idea. She had no idea. She's like, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? It's very easy. I know it's a lot. I know there's a lot of stuff that's out there, and it's very overwhelming sometimes, but it doesn't have to be, guys. It's just all a matter of discovery. And the other thing that I want to talk about too while I'm talking about these books is when you're studying, like, do you study all the books in one day or do you take a break in between? You can. And for some people, it gets to be a lot if you're doing multiple books in the same day. What I recommend is if it gets to be too much, do one book in a day, okay? But don't get too far away from the other books. So if you want to do the ICD-10 CM and ICD-10 PCS Coding Handbook with the Answers by Nellie Leon Chizen, they do have one without the answers. I don't recommend getting the one without the answers because how do you know if you got them right or not? Okay, you want to be able to know that you're doing it correctly. So get the one with the answers. It's worth the money, But if you are going that way and you're doing that, don't get too far away from the CPT side of it that you're going to forget. So maybe do 2 days on, 2 days with the other book, and then come back and do, one or the other, whatever you want to do, and work it that way. So that way you don't get too closed in on one thing and you forget so much of the other, because these tests cover everything and everything is all shuffled. Nothing is, well, we're going to do diagnosis coding first and then CPT and then ICD-10 PCS. It is not that way. It's just so you guys know. Getting back to your question, Alexandria, what do you want tips on specifically? Because that's a sort of a broad question. Do you want well, I guess what I could say to you is this. When you are starting, of course, I shouldn't have to tell you this because I know you're pretty good with notes, but take notes. Always have a pen and paper with you. Always make sure that you are doing your research before you ask for help, okay? Because there's nothing worse than that, especially if it's a simple question. And I always try to, if I'm starting brand new, I always try to write down all of my questions and then take them at one time instead of running back and forth, okay? I don't think that you're like that, where you would be running back and forth, but just in general, for anybody that's starting their brand new job, okay? Obviously, you don't want to share too much about your own personal life. Not that you do that, Alexandria, but I'm just saying to anybody else that's out there that's wondering about tips when they very first start, don't talk too much about yourself as far as your personal life. Sort of keep that on the back burner. There's a lot of people who learned the hard way about how people can turn things around on you. And sometimes people are not what they seem when you meet them. You may like this person. You may say, oh my gosh, this person is really cool. And, I really like them. And I think I feel safe talking to them. And sometimes it just comes back on you. So don't do that. Whatever you do, don't do that. Be receptive to people when they're trying to help you. I've seen brand new people say I'll say something helpful, whatever. And they're like, oh no, I got it. Oh, okay. And I'm not trying to impose, myself on them, but, there's nothing worse than that. I think people who come across as arrogant and knowing everything, that's not a good thing either, so just kind of keep that, keep that in the back of your mind. The other thing is nothing is personal. If somebody gets kind of snappy and things like that, it's not you. It's them. And you may not like that person. You may not like their energy because they're kind of snappy. It's okay to remove yourself from the situation because when they're like that, something else is going on. Something else is bothering them. It's not you. It's not personal. And sometimes people just need that when they're out there and they don't know how to regulate how they feel. They take it out on somebody that, they don't know. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. Nothing is personal. And that's good advice anyway, regardless if you're new or not. It's not personal. So sometimes you just have to kind of not pay attention to certain things. When people are saying crazy things to you or, when they're acting out or whatever. Sometimes it's just because they had a bad day, So that's something you got to think about. Being gracious to people. Sometimes it's kind of hard, I know. But that's something that you have to learn to work with in the working world. And that happens whether you're working remotely or whether you're working in the office. It literally can happen even when you're working remotely. A few years ago, I worked for a level 1 trauma hospital at home. And trust me, some of those girls, they were just you could feel like we're not even in the same room, and we would be in meetings, and you would know something was up, but So let's see. I know to take notes, listen carefully, etc. Oh wait, hold on. Johnny, hey, is there any way to get a mentorship from you? I don't do mentorship. I don't. Mentorship is a voluntary action, and I do not have time to volunteer right now for anything or anybody. I have time for my clients. I have time for myself to do the things that I do, and I work a full-time job, so I don't do mentorship. And my videos pretty much cover a lot of questions that people would have about the industry, and my videos are free to watch, here on YouTube. If you want exercises and things like that, other resources that I give exclusively to my Patreons, you can join my Patreon channel. It's not an ad for my Patreon channel, but it's out there. It's $10 per month. We have a once a month live study hall where I invite my Patreons at the $10 and up levels to come for, some chat and fellowship about coding, questions about coding. We had our session today, right before this live, and it was fantastic. It was like a lot of really good questions. I cleared up a lot of questions from my Patreons that were there, and it's a really awesome thing, and everybody feeds on the energy from each other, and I think it's really great. So I try to do that once a month. I've been doing that. I'm successfully doing it once a month for the last year. I've been doing that, and they seem to like it. I tried to do it like on a Saturday, but nobody would show up on Saturdays. I have like one person, and then now I do it during the week, and I typically make it like Wednesday or Friday, or Wednesday or Thursday, and that seems to be like the sweet spot. That seems to be the time when people are most available to do this, and they bring their coding questions, or sometimes we just talk about the industry. It's just whatever they want to talk about, whoever shows up. I also do like exercises. I've been posting more E&M scenarios because I know that people are wanting those types of things. So I've been posting more of those. I'll post the answers like a week later. Sometimes I'll talk about them if it's something that people really want more answers on, like how did I get this and why. That's something that I do for them. I post 10 question coding quizzes, and it's either CPT or ICD-10-CM. Sometimes it's medical terminology, those kinds of things. But people who subscribe have access to all of the quizzes and everything that I've posted. So I think that's a fantastic deal for what I charge. But you can subscribe a month and then unsubscribe. It doesn't matter. Those funds go to supporting my continuing education, which makes me a better coder, which helps me to help others. So that's my thing with Patreon. So hopefully that answers your question there, Johnny. Beth says, plus they always have great deals. Yes, Optum does. Alexandria says, I know to take notes, listen carefully, etc., research before help. I always encourage that with everything. What about attitude? So we actually are on the same wavelength. I start talking about attitude. Lorraine says, I registered for school and got into the HIM program. Can I study and take the exams ahead of time? You absolutely can. You do not, except, hold on, let me go back. If you're in the HIM program, you mean health information management? Like a legitimate health information management, like you're going to sit for the RHIA afterward, Lorraine? Alexandria says, should I be more outspoken if I know what I'm talking about or hold back? The nothing is personal is a great tip. Thanks. I am working in an office. Dang, I missed the Patreon live. But I'm on vacation. It's okay. Lorraine, if you can answer my question, please, about your taking exams ahead of time. But Alexandria, so when it comes to should I be more outspoken if I know what I'm talking about or hold back, you have to make sure that if you have a correct answer and somebody's trying to tell you that you're wrong, you better make sure that you're right. Because sometimes if you misunderstand, that's that one thing. So if you have something that proves that you're correct, you can tell them very professionally, I have this, the reason that I chose this code was because of this. Here's this coding clinic, here's this CPT assistant, here is this guideline, here is this thing, or this whatever. It's got to be something official. The Merck manual, CPT assistant, coding clinic, the guidelines, something. It cannot be welovecoding.com. I don't even know if that's a real website, but I'm just saying it cannot be from AAPC. It cannot be from like the answer key, not the answer key, but the help, the message board or whatever. It cannot be from there. It cannot be from there. I have seen some of those. This is like, I don't know where you got that answer from, but that's I don't know, So don't pick from there. It's got to be something that's legitimate and something that is like, okay, this is from an official resource. But you absolutely have to say what it is, especially if you're right. But you better make sure that you're right first. And it's not about being like, or you're intentionally challenging that person. It's an ethical thing. In our ethical standards, the AHIMA standards of ethical coding says that we will advocate for correct coding. And it says in there specifically, it talks about that if you have something that supports what you're saying, that you need to say it in a way that is professional so that you can get it cleared up, okay? It's not just about like, oh, I'm the lead coder, so you're going to do what I say. Like fun I am. I don't think so. If you have something official, of course, you're not going to say like fun I am, but if you have something official, that's when you say, well, I do have this resource, and according to this resource, it says this, this, and this. And then if they're like, oh, okay, because that is something that we are all held to. We are all held to ethical standards, regardless of the association and regardless of credential status. I'm just saying. So hopefully, does that answer your question, Alexandria? Do you recommend mentioning I'm a medical doctor in a foreign country? It depends on what you want to do, but that's kind of hard to hide. You know what I mean? Like they're going to know by your education, you know what I mean? But it really all depends on what you want to do, Lorraine says, yes, I can take the practicum, but after I'm done with the classes, but I am being drawn to coding after doing a little bit more research. I've been a HIM tech for years and want to learn something different. Okay, Alexandria, you do not have to take a formal program to take the CCS, CCA, CCSP, or the CPC. Now, you say that you're in that HIM program. I personally would recommend for you going with a HEMA anyway, the CCS, the CCA, or the CCSP, any one of these three. The only reason that I recommend going with a HEMA for you, because you're in the HIM program, that means you're going to go with the RHIA when you get done with your HIM program. You're already with a HEMA. You're already certified with a HEMA. In my mind, it doesn't make sense to go to another association to get a CPC and have to pay a membership when you're already with a HEMA and they have plenty of medical coding certifications there. Not only that, you will not have to go through the apprentice status. There's nothing wrong with being an apprentice, but I'm just saying that if you're already with an association, it does not make sense. Or if you're about to be, you're going to be confirmed within a certain amount of time, after you take your certification, with them, just stay with them. That's why I recommend going with them, but you can go with whoever you like. That's just my advice to you anyway. Let's see. Humble says, Blue, I failed the CCS exam in May by 10 points, but I still was able to land a coder position at a nursing home where I work. Your videos have definitely been helpful. That's great. You see, you can still get hired without a certification, but you should make sure that you do get a certification, okay? Now, whatever happened, whether it was nerves or whatever, you're right there. You say you failed it in May. Do not try to take it like right now, okay? Take some time to study. Now, yes, they do allow like 30-day turnaround now. Like you can take your test again. You can retake it after you failed it in 30 days. I don't necessarily agree with that, only because I think that if you have failed it and the test is going to change every single time. The test changes every single time. So you're not going to have the same things that you were tested on previously, because there's a pool of a bunch of questions and it gets randomly put into this test. So you want to make sure that you are absolutely ready. I still recommend taking the 90 days to study. And if you are consistently studying and you got your test score back, and so you know where your weak spots were, whether if it was in the coding, you need to be practicing 20 hours per week. You saw those two, if you've been here the whole show, you saw the two workbooks that I recommend, and then studying with the ICD-10 PCS but the code book in the back, working through those from OPTIM, that's going to really help you. But working through those two workbooks plus that ICD-10 PCS book will prepare you. And even though they changed the domains on the CCS exam, the majority of that test is still coding knowledge and skill. So you still want to make sure that you're really practicing, okay? And just sort of have to lick your wounds and just keep going, okay? And that happens. If you look at the pass-fail scores for the CCS, you'll see that it's very difficult to pass first try, very difficult. And so that's something that you got to keep in mind. This is the Mastery Medical Coding Certification. And so don't be discouraged. Study and attempt it again later when you feel ready, okay? But even though they hired you without a certification, even though that's fantastic, you still want to make sure that you're showing them that you're committed to being a really good coder, and let them know that they made a right choice by hiring you, that you're still going after your goal of getting certified. Just my advice anyway. Okay, you're welcome, Lorraine. So the other book that I want to talk about is this book. So this, yes, it is a 2021. You can't get the 2021 edition anymore. But this book is the Procedures in Plain English Description. This is from Decision Health. This book is awesome. This explains and breaks down all CPT procedures. Like it literally breaks down like what happens in layman's terms in these procedures. Because of course CPT doesn't really go into it, but this is a very helpful book. Now, this book is very, very expensive. This is like $160 something book. This does not go on sale. Yeah, it does not go on sale. And so I think it's either $160 or $140 something. It's expensive. Okay, so by the time you do the shipping and stuff like that, it's up there. It's almost $200. But it is worth every cent. And even though this is a 2021 book, I'm still able to use it when I'm looking up stuff. And when I'm working with my students, when I'm working with my Patreons, and I pull out this book and they're like, oh my gosh, Blue, that's such an awesome book. It is, because it breaks it down. Because sometimes there's just a subtle difference between procedures, especially when they're really close together and you don't know. And this is the best way to be able to figure it out because it explains everything. Okay, so Decision Health, you can find those at codingbooks.com, not an ad. But this is where you would find that book. Okay, so it is totally worth it. This is highly recommended. Now, if you can find this book at the public library, you are all the better for it. Okay, you are all the better for it because that's something that you can check out. That's something that you can borrow. You don't have to put out money. You do not have to put out money in order to learn this field if you're smart. If you're smart, you can find books that are cheaper. You can find low-cost books. You can find them on sale. Again, around August, September is when OPTIM really starts putting deep discounts on the current year books. And that's something that you can learn on, okay? Now, you may have to do a little bit of finesse to find the CPC Study Guide and the ICD-10-CM and ICD-10-PCS Coding Handbook with the Answers by Nellie Leon Chisholm. You may have to do a little bit of searching for that one, but it is totally worth it, okay? These things are just so helpful for learning. And again, using the videos that are available on YouTube, okay? There's Ninja Nerd, there is Crash Course. These are two fantastic channels that cover anatomy, medical terminology, and all those kinds of things. You can go on Instagram and you can find tons and tons of content creators that are either medical residents, like, you know, they're going to be a doctor or whatever, and they're doing all kinds of like helpful quizzes and things like that to kind of help them, and it helps other people, and they have other people that are like watching their channel. I subscribe to a lot of them because it helps me, and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, those are Dr. Azmin, Azmin. Dr. Azmin, he has his, and he has these little 5-question coding quizzes, and I'm like, oh, not coding, but they're like anatomy questions, and I'm like, oh, and so then I'll be able to answer those, and then some of them I'm like, oh man, I forgot about that, you know, but you know, he has a lot of really good content on his channel. So there's a lot of really good content creators on Instagram. I don't go on TikTok. I don't, because I think TikTok is contributing to the shortened attention span of people. And I don't think that that's good. In a field like this, where we have to know what doctors know, while never having gone to medical school, this is not a good thing. Okay? You can't learn this snappy. You have to spend the time to learn it. Okay? And so while some of these little boutique things are like, oh, they're cute, it's there's nothing better than spending 30 minutes, a minimum of 30 minutes studying, or a maximum of 1 hour studying, like doing the actual exercises. That's what you want to do. Okay, so that you're not burning yourself out. Because when I was studying for the CCS, I learned that I didn't think about like taking a break after an hour. And one time when I was studying, I was doing the 388 ICD-10 PCS procedures in the back of the PCS book, this one. I was doing these and I was going okay at first. I was like, okay, cool, I was like, all right, I got this. And then all of a sudden I started getting them wrong. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I think I got it and I don't. And then I started really messing them up. And I was like, well, how did this happen? I looked at the clock. It was 2.5 hours later and I hadn't had a break. And I was like, well, okay, now I know I have to stop after an hour, because your brain needs time to reset and then absorb everything that you are trying to learn. So make sure that you remember that too. Take a break. 30 minutes minimum of study time, so that you have time to be like, okay, you're in it, cool. Or maximum of 1 hour. And then you take a break, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and then you come back to it. Okay. And you do this, you can do this 5 days a week. You do 3.5 hours per day. And you do 3.5 hours per day in 5 days, at 17.5 hours. And then you have 2.5 hours on a Saturday or Sunday, and that's 20 hours a week that you've studied. 80 hours in a whole month. Versus the person that's only studying for 5 hours a week, is barely getting to 20 hours in a month. There's a huge difference between somebody who's been learning consistently for 80 hours a month versus somebody who's barely putting in 20. There's a huge difference in the knowledge base, in the confidence, and on all of these things. Because you're building speed too, because everybody reads slow at first. Everybody reads slow. But once you start getting into it, you'll get faster. I'm just saying. Roxanne says, would that help with PCS? Would what help with PCS? Dharma? I hope I said that right. Would you do a live stream video on? No. If you do, let us know. I'll be there. No, I don't do TikTok. I don't do TikTok. I don't even have a TikTok account. Okay, that's how much I don't do TikTok. And everybody tells me, Blue, you got to be on TikTok because you can like expand your audience and everything like that. It's an ethical thing, guys. Like I do long form videos. Like all my content is long form. Every single one of my videos is long form. And people say, well, but we need something faster. But you can't learn this fast. The faster you try to learn it, the more questions you're going to have. Versus if you just take your time to learn it, you'll be able to understand it a lot better. And it's going to be a lot more fun, because then you get the puzzle and then you get to figure it out and that kind of thing. So that's the thing. And I say it's an ethical thing because I have always said that when you are in this industry, it takes attention, it takes time. And when people are like flipping through these little 10-second videos, and that it's like that dopamine, like, okay, like, oh, this is funny, we're going to the next one, and we're only getting the meat of the potato. We're not getting the full story, because your brain has to have the full story. You have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. When I was in school, that's how we got taught to learn how to like write papers and things like that. That's something that I'm strong into. I love writing. Writing is one of my most favorite things to do. Beginning, a middle, and an end. You've got to be able to tell the story. If you just told the meat of the story, yeah, you go like, oh my gosh, that's shocking. But how did it happen? And what happened afterward? And what about all these other things? That's the thing, So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here on YouTube, because YouTube likes my little long form videos. So that's why I do long form videos, and that's where I'm comfortable. This is where I'm most comfortable, because when I think, how can I do something so short? And even when I do say something short, I tried to do shorter videos in the beginning when I started the channel in 2018, and everybody was saying, well, your videos are too long. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try to do 6-minute videos, because I was doing 12-minute videos. I'll do 6-minute videos. And then they were like, well, what about this? What about this? Now y'all have more questions. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like I can't please everybody. But what I can do is teach you the best way that I can. What I can do is share with you about the industry in a neutral way, that I'm not in a neutral way, meaning that I'm not trying to sell the field to you. I've always said this. I don't try to sell the field of medical coding, because it's not for everybody. It is a fantastic field. You can grow with it. You can be with it for a long time and things like that. This is a field to grow in, okay? Regardless of what anybody else says, I know from experience. I've been in this for 16 years, okay? And I heard the same things that a lot of people heard in the beginning of my journey. Oh, it's gonna go away, and and 16 years later, I'm still here. You know what I mean? So that's the thing that I say. And now, again, when it comes to, what you want to do and how you want to learn and who you want to learn from, it's entirely up to you. But I try to give you guys the best tools that I possibly can. And when I hear from somebody that tells me, Bleu, I got the job. Bleu, because of you, I passed my test. Bleu, because of you, I passed my test, I got a job, and now I can support my family. The first time I got that kind of email, I cried, because I helped somebody that much, and I had no idea that I was doing that. All I was doing was coming on here and sharing ideas and telling y'all about these kinds of things, and here's the books, and this is what you got to do, and explaining sequencing and sequela and fractures and all these other things. Never once thinking that my impact was that big. And then when I got that, I was like, oh my God, I cried so hard, because it was emotional. I was like, oh my God, but that's why I do it. And that's why I will still be here on YouTube, that's why I won't go on TikTok, because again, it's just so fast. And there's just, I can't even watch it, because it's just like, it's too fast. It's too fast. Now I'll watch Instagram, because they're it's a little bit longer, like a minute or so, I can watch that, but I can't do TikTok. Sorry. Hi, Eva. Oh, thank you, Dharma. I'm hoping I'm saying your name right. Nikki says, did you say I can use the CPC study guide to study for the CPCS? But why would you? Why would you? Let's see. Sylvia says, I have a full-time job. I want to start coding as a part-time. What do you think? I think no, because when you start off as a medical coder, they do not want you to work part-time, because they will only get a quarter of the work out of you when you're working part-time, and because you have no experience. Okay, this is not something that you can do on the side. This is not a side hustle. This is not a what is the other one? Whatever, you can't do this in your spare time. You can't do this as something that you do just, whatever. And no, you can't do that. You have to be full time. Now, some people will tell you, well, I'm brand new and I got a part-time job. Good for you. But what are you really learning? And not only that, how much are you producing? And how much that you're producing, how much of it is correct? So no, you can't. That's just my advice anyway, Eva says, I am late. I got, oh my God. I got the bug step-by-step workbook. Could I use the 2022 book that would go with the workbook? I talked about this, and you're going to have to rewatch the show, Miss Eva. You're going to have to rewatch the show, because I already talked about it. Let's see. So the CPCS, Nikki. The CPCS is a Certified Billing and Coding Specialist, and that's a credential with the NHA, okay? If you look at the job listings, people have asked me about this, and this is what I'm going to share, okay? Now, you get it, do whatever you want, but I'm just saying this, okay? Some people get into this program, and they say, well, we will prepare you for the CPCS. And I'm not saying this to discourage anybody, so do not say that about me. I am telling you guys what is out there in the industry. When you are looking for a job as a medical coder, they are asking for 2 association credentials, the HEMA or AAPC. They're looking for the CCS, CCA, CCSP, or the CPC. Those are the 4 that they're looking for if you're wanting a medical billing and coding job. Now, there are some programs that say, well, we will include this voucher for the CPCS certification, and you'll be able to be on your way, and you got this free credential, and you'll be out there, for a few years ago, the CPCS did not require coding books to take that exam. Okay, a few years ago, they did not require coding books to take that exam. So you didn't have to have an ICD-10-CM manual. You didn't have to have CPT or HCPCS. You just had to go in there and take the test. It was a memorization test. But because it says coding and billing in there, people are saying, oh yeah, you can be a coder with that. But then they found out that a lot of people are not asking for that certificate. So then they were like, well, what happened? Because the employers knew that you weren't required to have medical coding manuals. That was more of a billing test, okay? Now, they do now require ICD-10-CM, CPT, HCPCS. They do require that now. So I guess they're trying to level up on their game. I still cannot recommend that certification. Not that you asked me if I recommend it or not, but what I'm saying is this. When you are preparing for that test, keep in mind that you can still prepare for either an AHIMA certification, CCS, ECA, CCSP, or you can prepare for an AAPC certification with the CPC. So by all means, you can use all the teachings that you got for that CPCS program. You can take the CPCS if you want to. But keep in mind, you want to get either an AHIMA certification or you want to get an AAPC certification. This is just to solidify that you are competent in coding, even though, yes, they do require a book. But again, you want to have the best opportunity to be able to get that job. And even though you say, well, I have my CPCS, they may see that as not having a certification. I'm just telling you what they are saying out there. Okay, this is what I've seen. Okay, so don't get your feelings hurt. Okay, whatever you do, don't get your feelings hurt. I'm talking to anybody, not just you. I'm talking to anybody who's going to get their feelings hurt, because somebody always gets their feelings hurt. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm trying to be real with you. I want you guys to be set up for success. I don't want you to be out there with a certification that no one is looking for. And if you don't believe me, look at the job listings. Go to medical coding, job listings. You'll see AHIMA, AAPC, AHIMA, AAPC. Those are the ones that you'll see. So yes, by all means, if you want to practice on your own for the CPC, get the CPC Study Guide, get that ICD-10-CM and ICD-10-PCS Coding Handbook with the Answers by Nellie Leon Chizen. So that way you can practice on both sides, the diagnosis coding and the CPT procedure coding, because you can skip the PCS questions. But you can do that, and then you could prepare yourself for either the AHIMA or the AAPC exam. I'm just saying, Hi, Louisa. Oh, thank you. Humble says, Blue, getting these doctors to complete their H&Ps is like pulling teeth. Yes. Pulling the teeth of a hen. Ha ha ha. Funny. Yes. Yes, it is. But here's the thing. When it comes to communicating with doctors, it depends on how you're coming at them too. Okay. If you are not in person and you're only doing this by email, that's why they don't want to respond. Excuse me. They need you to be there with them. Okay. A lot of doctors do not like email. They will ignore your email. They will not respond to your email because they would rather you be in person than, doing this. So if you are like working at home, but you're local to the facility or whatever, and then you can go in there, make the time to go in there, get with their secretary and find out when do they have like their downtime. So that way you can go over and visit them. If you are actually in the facility and coding, then if you're like me and I'm literally embedded in the clinic, the second that somebody starts messing up on their notes, I can go right to their door and just look at them. He's like, hey, what's going on? What's this? Oh, what did I do? They're like, oh, and so that's how you can get that conversation going. But it's not personal. Okay. It's not personal. It's just them. And keep in mind, these doctors have been in school for years. So their social skills is not the same as people who have not been going to school for 15, 16 years. Okay. Everybody else is just like, okay, we had all of our, our fun time in high school. We had all of our fun time in college. We had all of our fun time as a young adult, maybe not going to college, maybe going to trade school. They didn't have all that. Doctors had study, 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 study. And guarantee you that wasn't just when they turned 18 and they started studying. This is probably from when they were 10 years old, maybe 5 years old, and they were pushed by their parents, or it was just them that they wanted to be a doctor so bad that, it's their whole life. So they miss out on a lot of those social development, social skills. So that's why you have to consider that when you're communicating with them. Communicating with doctors is a lot different from communicating with everybody else, even though they're just like us. But you do have to look at them. You have to pay attention to what they need. You have to pay attention to how they respond. Because some people do not respond well to, I'm sorry, I have a question. If I'm a doctor, I would be like, what do you want? Hurry up and get out of my office. If I had somebody like that, because I don't want to be told I'm sorry. Oh, I don't. Just tell me what the question is. A lot of times they just want you to get to the point because they're very busy. Get to the point. Don't apologize for being there, for asking a question. You be direct and you ask them, you got a second? I have something I need to discuss with you. Okay, cool. What is it? And then here we go. And then you start learning about that person. You start learning about their personalities and things like that. I have learned this growing up as a coder. Working with a bunch of orthodox. Orthodox and podiatry docs. They are quite the bunch, but I love working with them, and I have learned so much from them. And it's taken me a long time, because before I used to think that same thing. They don't want to hear from me. And it wasn't until I had a doctor who told me, Blue, you know the coding. I don't know this. And you're the expert. I was like, oh, well, okay. He goes, I need you to help me understand this. You got it. And then I said, but your notes are okay. He goes, I feel like I can do better. And I'm like, you want me to look for errors? I don't understand. I'm like, I don't get it, And he's like, no, but just tell me, like, what am I doing? I said, you're fantastic. Your stuff is like poetry. He's like, really? And I'm like, he's like, but can I be better? And I was like, okay, well, I will look. I will see if there's anything. I will see if there's any holes. And guarantee you start looking for holes, you'll find them. There's things that could be more detailed. There's things that could be more clearer. There's things, you know what I mean? Like, they don't know what we know as coders. They don't. They don't know that there's different codes for different things. Take, for example, this, right? There is traumatic ACL tear. Then there's an organic ACL tear. So which one is it? Was it something that was external to them? Were they injured when this happened? Or was it just because, just wearing out from over time? Those are degenerative conditions. And that's an organic condition. That's not an injury. So there's a difference between the two, but there's two different codes, And so they don't know this until they start saying, and we start having this conversation, then they're like, oh, so they start being more detailed about it because they didn't know and I didn't know. And then we're all learning together. So I'm just saying, it's a neat experience when you start doing that and when you start learning about them. But you can't get frustrated with them because they don't know. They do not know, so you can't get frustrated with them. You can't send them to somebody else. If you are the coder and it is your responsibility to do the education, you handle it. If you don't know how to handle it, then you need to look at these videos that talk about how to speak publicly, and you start working with those types of things. You start learning about like handshakes and the importance of eye contact and those kinds of things. That's when you start building yourself up as a professional, because it's not just about the books and learning the coding. It's also about being able to communicate these things. Okay. Again, I could go into a whole whole conversation about this. Thank you. I love Blue straightforward answers. Eva says facts. I got my coding certification, CMBC, Certified Medical Billing and Coding certification from Allied Health. And through my community college, and I have been applying left and right, but everyone is asking for AAPC or a HEMA. So I'm doing your self-study. There you go, to be able to take my CCS or CCSP through AHIMA. There you go. Yes, Blue doesn't play. Thank you. Hi, lady. Thank you, Lady and Helen, for the blue hearts. I love those. But yes, so that's what it is, guys. That's what it is, and that's part of the fun challenge of it all. You know, I mean, it's not always going to be. It's not always the best thing. It's not always sunshine and roses, and sometimes you wonder what you're doing. You know, and sometimes you think, oh my gosh, I had one provider. He just retired, and I miss him every day because he turned out to be one of my best documenters. He's the GOAT, okay? Greatest of all time. He's literally the GOAT. And when I first got him, he told me, I queried him on something, and I said, oh, here's the query and that kind of thing. And then he goes, oh, no. He goes, I've been doing it this way for years, and I've never gotten a query. I said, well, this isn't clear, and I need this to be able to code it. He goes, well, I'm not doing it. He goes, I've done it this way for years. And I said, I can't code this because I don't know which code to select because it's not clear. But how did they code it before? I don't know. I can't look at that information. All I know is that I'm your coder now, and I can't code this. He said, well, why not? And I said, because I don't have a clear diagnosis code on it. Well, I'm not doing it. I said, okay. I mean, I can't say anything. So I said, okay, he's having a bad day. Let me give him a couple days and come back to it. Send him another query. He's like, Blue, this is the same query. I said, okay, yes, but I still need to code this, and the claim still hasn't gone out. So we need to get some clarification here. I don't understand why I have to clarify this. This is stupid. And I was like, okay, I get it. I know it's stupid. I said, but there's rules, and we have to have this clarification because I can't pick a code without this information. And he says, I'm not doing it. And I said, okay. There's nothing I can do. There's literally nothing I can do. So I went and told my boss, and it's like, he's not doing it. Like, I can't get him to do anything. She's like, well, just give him a little while, you know. A week later, same thing. I'm not doing it. And I said, okay. I said, you know what? That's fine. I said, you win, I lose. I can't make you do anything. He's like, what? And I said, I can't make you. All I can do is just close this encounter out and just zero it out. I can't do anything with it because I can't report it because there's not a reportable diagnosis. I can't do anything with it. And I said, but you didn't want to respond to the query. I have the email traffic, and I can't. There's nothing I can do. You win, I lose. So I can't believe you just said that. I was like, there's literally nothing else I can do. And I was like, but if you ever want to talk about it, you ever want an explanation why, because I'm here. He said, He said, I have a patient. And I said, okay, see you later then. So I went back to my office. Next day, he's at my door. And I said, yes. And then he goes, did you see what I did? I said, what did you do? He goes, did you see my notes today? And I go, no, I haven't looked at them yet. I was like, you didn't do the same thing for all the other notes, did you? He goes, just look at the notes. And so I looked at the notes. I go, I was like, everything is there. He goes, I don't understand why you need it, but I went ahead and just did it. And I was like, okay. And then so I started to explain it to him, and I saw the light bulb go on. And then he's like, oh. I said, and then he goes, but I couldn't just do it the first time you asked me. I said, what? He goes, I couldn't just do it the first time you asked me. I said, why? He goes, well, this was much more fun. I go, sir. And he started laughing. So he went back to his office. He's chuckling down the hallway. And so I was able to, do more, coding with his. And then his notes just got better and better and better every single time. And then I was just like, wow. And I said, this is incredible. Like, the turnaround was really incredible. And I started doing more presentations in the department because they were making it more of a priority. And that was so good because they were seeing the difference between not having coaching and having the coaching. And coaching meaning, like, sometimes they have to be reminded. Laterality. We need to know, like, the specific cause of, what happened and things like that. Because sometimes these are, related to a vehicle accident. Sometimes it's related to the job, on the job injury. And those are the things that, we need to know. And so it just comes out better for statistics. So I'm just saying. Humble says the worst is when a provider selects at-risk malnutrition on a query. Oh, that's an interesting one. But yeah, some of them are very difficult and hard to work with, and some of them are really nice to work with. And some of them will teach you lessons. And lessons meaning that you will grow as a coder because it will help you to be more sophisticated in your approach. You'll learn that there's different doctors who have different needs as far as learning goes. And sometimes you may have to adjust your approach. Some may need more visuals, like where you have to show them a good example and a bad example so they can see side by side what you're asking for. And sometimes that may help, so. But with that said, y'all have had me for an hour and a half now. And I got some other things got to do tonight before I turn in. Yeah, this is it today. Friday, I don't have a show. I thought about filming a show. I thought about filming 2 shows, but I came in and I had a bunch of stuff to do. But I may squeeze. I don't know. I won't make promises. I'll just, if I can, I can. If I can't, I can't. Because Friday is, I got a lot of stuff to do on tomorrow anyway. I ain't got appointments. But we'll see. We'll see. But thank you guys so much for joining me. This has been fun. But yes, guys, if you want to get the new books, get the new books. If you want to use the old books, save yourself a couple of bucks, even better. Okay? You do not have to break the bank in order to learn coding. All right? Take advantage of the free resources that are out there. Visit the public library. Okay? That's a community resource that's out there. If you are done with coding and you don't want to do coding anymore, whatever, you're wondering what to do with your books, donate them to the public library. If you want to get rid of your year-old books, take them to the public library, okay? All the more reason to treat your books right so that they're not all ratted up, because they shouldn't be ratted up. I'm just saying, Oh, thank you, Dharma. Best live. You're welcome, Brittany. Thank you, Crystal. Have a good weekend. Thank you, Helen. I love your personality, but thank you so much. And Alexandria, good luck on your job. I know you're going to do fantastic, okay? You are going to do fantastic, Alexandria, on your job, and they're going to adore you, and you're going to have a good time. You're going to learn a lot of things, and you're going to do great things, okay? Don't overthink, okay? That's the best piece of advice I can offer you is to not overthink. When you get to your front door, everything that happened at work. Be home, be with your family, and it'll be all right. What is it in Disneyland or whatever? When the characters are coming out, they have the lights on that says showtime, so that they know to get into character. That's why you always see Cinderella. She looks so happy and everything. And I'm sure they've got things going on in their mind, but they don't. They're there to entertain the people from Disneyland. But it's the same thing when you get home. You got to leave all that stuff that happened at work, and you got to be home. You got to be present with your family. I'm just saying. So with that said, I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.